The 12-day war. In Israel's time of absolute need, the call was sent. We need more interceptors. We're running out. Nobody told us these Persian Lions would have such tech and capacity to overwhelm our 5-tiered interceptor defense apparatus. America stepped in and secretly made the call to regional allies. Saudi Arabia and the UAE, United Arab Emirates, i.e. Dubai, were expected to answer the call, much to the fury of their largely Muslim citizens in those countries. But the governments, Saudi Arabia and UAE, shocked their Israeli and American allies. They refused to answer the call to assist Israel. Translated over from Arabic and Farsi sources from the likes of Middle East Eye, Middle East Monitor, Iran News, and the like, recent reports reveal that during the 12-day war, Israel was on the brink of running out of THAAD missiles. Due to the missile pressure, Iran surprisingly responded with in response to the initial Israeli attacks. As a result, the US called on allies, aligned nations to step in and resupply the Israeli state, even going to Saudi Arabia and the UAE to ask that they open up their airspace to Israeli and American interception efforts, which would increase the likelihood and the success rate of intercepting Iranian ballistic and hypersonic missiles. Saudi was even directly asked to hand over some of their own THAAD missiles to Israel. THAAD missiles that America had sold Saudi. Saudi and the UAE, when it came to their airspace, said, no, la habibi, la kalla, meaning definitely not. That's the news, but here's the analysis you won't get elsewhere. You wouldn't even get the news I just shared with you in 1 minute 48 seconds, to be honest. Did you hear that news anywhere? No. Here's the analysis though. Did I not tell you guys that the US is slipping out of the Middle East region? Did I not tell you that China is coming in and making friends out of old enemies, i.e. Iran and Saudi Arabia? With BRICS having Iran in it as a member, and with Saudi Arabia working more and more closely economically and potentially militarily with China, even Saudi Arabia even holding an offer to join BRICS in their hand. They haven't accepted it, but unlike a certain South American nation, they haven't refused it either. A triangular partnership between the three, the Titan of Asia, China, the powerful and resilient Islamic Republic of Iran, and the custodian of the two holiest sites in Islam, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it would be a strong union indeed. There's no question about it. And we caught just a whiff of a potential union during the 12-day war, whose details continue to leak out slowly. I know it's not pretty, by the way, those who say Saudi has done nothing for Palestine, in fact, they help Israel. Yes, I'm aware, I do plenty of homework. But I'm talking about trajectory. I'm talking about taking the emotion out of your frustration and analyzing the situation. Trajectory-wise, these Gulf monarchies are on a trajectory that moves them closer to Iran and China, and the US is on a trajectory out of the Middle East, meaning effectively these Gulf monarchies are moving away from the United States. Why is the US leaving the Middle East? So it can focus on China from the other side of the globe, across the Pacific. Israel is panicked by this developing geopolitical dynamic or shift in geopolitics of the region, because Israel relies on the US alignment, Israel relies on US aligned countries like Turkey and Egypt and the Gulf monarchies like Jordan and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Without that alignment, they're left to their own devices, and Israel cannot manage alone. Where geopolitically, these countries could weigh up their options and decide that their citizenry would better support a government if it wasn't cozying up to Israel. They might, assess the situation, and then they might flip. Well, then Israel is fresh out of regional buddies and enemies it's stocked up on well. In geopolitics, nation states operate through logical calculation. What will benefit me? What will harm me? I will act accordingly, right? Emotion modifies this equation, of course. Heads of state, people in power, they have preferences. But the second rule of geopolitics that I live by or teach essentially is those in power will do what they must before they can do what they want. So Mohammed bin Salman, Mohammed bin Zayed, they have things they want to do, but first they have things they absolutely have to do. So emotion, their preferences will play a part in the equation, but it won't be the biggest part. the preference element. The biggest part will be the cold logic of necessity of the state, the survival of the state or the prospering of the state. That will come first, and then whatever way each head of state or each ruling party wants to lean the state in, that will come second. The preferences of these Gulf states, what is it? Well, it is to modernize, more accurately, westernize, for better or worse. I'm not, I'm not going for or against the plan here. I'm just giving you the information. But times are changing. And if these kings and princes and emirs and presidents, they think that they will be better off and their citizens will be happier moving away from American Western interests, if they think they cannot afford to oppose the sentiment of their citizens when it comes to other regional powers like Israel, the state doesn't want to fight its own citizens just to support Israel for no actual geopolitical benefit anymore, then you might see these states flip, right? For many, this will be considered wishful thinking. I understand that. They'll say, Mahfouz, the copium you are ingesting, Habibi, it might be fatal levels. To you, I say, I understand. You've been disappointed so many times, it feels inefficient to hope and be let down again. What's the point, right? But mark my words, if my analysis is sound and my forecast is on point, expect Iran and these current Arab states, even if their governments stay as they are and they're not, overthrown or anything, even in that situation, these Arab states in America's sphere of influence, expect them to drift out of America's sphere of influence and end up on the same side as Iran. The question is, how will Israel respond to that changed geopolitical reality when it's just them by themselves, and then all the nations that were in some way within America's sphere of influence, now they are independent, and therefore they've independently chosen to align themselves with the other side. How is Israel going to cope with that? I hope they won't cope by being violent, but that is a hard cope from me. That's me ingesting copium. Okay, that's very optimistic to assume or to hope that Israel will see that shift and not get violent and absolutely lunatic at a state level. That's my regretful conclusion. Time will tell, though, how things turn out, and I'll be here to report to you the news and the analysis, unbiased and without the Western spin. I'm Mahfouz, and I'll see you on the next one.